Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I just wanted something quick and easy, so I looked in the freezer and pantry. I had these Just Bare spicy chicken breast fillets, some of the Ore-Ida fast food fries, and then some sesame seed hamburger buns. I cooked up the chicken patties in the oven according to the package instructions, baked the fries, and assembled the sandwiches, and that was dinner this night. For dinner the next night, I did pork chops with a Parmesan pine nut butter. Now, I got this recipe from a Home Chef box years ago, and I have found the recipe online, so I'll just use it with my own ingredients. I'll link that recipe down in the description box below for you, but I'm going to first start out by making one of the sides. So we're going to do all gratin potatoes, and I used Crouton Cracker Jack's recipe. I'll link his video in the description box below for you. So here I've got some boiling water. I did put some salt in it. I took some thinly sliced potatoes. I used a mandolin, but you can just do it with a knife. We're going to add the potatoes to the boiling water and allow them to come back to a boil and then cook them for 3 minutes, drain them, and rinse them with some cold water to stop them from cooking. I do have the oven preheating to 350 degrees, by the way. Now, in that same pot, we just cooked the potatoes in it. There's no reason to dirty up another pot. I'm going to add in some butter and then some diced onions. I'm going to allow the butter to melt and the onions to get tender about 3 to 5 minutes or so. I like to add a little bit of salt. I use unsalted butter, so I add a little bit to not only season that up, but also to help the onions sweat out a little bit. Once they're tender, we're going to add in some flour, give that a whisk, and allow that to cook for a minute or two. Next, I'm going to slowly whisk in some milk. I know some recipes call for cream, some call for half and half. Crouton Cracker Jack's recipe just calls for regular milk, and I've made this recipe many times over the years, and it comes out really delicious, so I just use milk. But if you want to use half and half for cream, you know my saying, you do you, you're in your kitchen, use what you want. So I'm going to give that a whisk, and once it starts to slightly thicken, we're going to season it up with some salt and pepper. And then I decided this time to season this just like I like to season my macaroni and cheese. Just try something different. So I'm adding in some garlic powder, dried yellow mustard, some smoked paprika, and I just added that to taste. I also decided to add in some grated Parmesan cheese. I know I have this little container here, but I also have like a huge container in my fridge, and I need to, work through them both, so I was just trying to use up some of the Parmesan. Now I'm going to add in some shredded cheddar cheese. It is better if you shred up the cheese yourself because pre-shredded cheese is coated in like starch, and that can affect the creaminess of your sauce. But if all you have is shredded, or that's what you want to use it. So once that cheese is melted, our sauce is done. Here I have a 9x9 casserole dish. I have greased it. I'm going to add a little bit of the cheese sauce to the bottom. Then I'm going to do a layer of the par-cooked potatoes, the cheese sauce, the potatoes. Just keep going until you run out of ingredients. You do want to make sure you end up with the cheese sauce on top though. Now, you could do a little more shredded cheese on top if you want. You could do some cooked crumbled bacon. You could add some parsley or, whatever you'd like. But I'm just going to keep this simple. This is going to go into that preheated oven and bake for about 30 to 45 minutes or so until it is golden brown and bubbly. You also want to make sure that the potatoes are tender, but if you pre-cook them, you should be fine. You can switch out the cheddar cheese and use different cheeses, but once this comes out of the oven, you definitely want to let this set for about 20 minutes to allow the sauce to, kind of thicken up and settle a little bit before you serve it up. For the other side, I'm making some broccolini or baby broccoli. I'm also using olive oil and then this Kinder's buttery garlic and herb seasoning. Use whatever seasonings you want. And I'm cooking this in the air fryer, but you can cook this on top of the stove or in the oven. So to my air fryer basket, I have that broccolini. I'm going to drizzle on some olive oil and then that Kinder's seasoning. I'm going to give this a toss and then pop this into the air fryer. I cooked this at 400 degrees for about 8 or 9 minutes or so. I did shake the basket halfway through. You want to cook it until the broccolini is tender and golden brown, and I really like the ends to get, they almost look burnt, but they're super crispy. Now for the pork chops. I believe the Home Chef recipe calls for bone-in pork chops, but we prefer boneless. I got this package of 5 pork chops, and they were a nice size. I got them at Kroger for $5. Not bad at all. So I'm going to season these up with some of the Kinder's blend seasoning. You could just use salt and pepper like the recipe calls for if you want. So I'm going to season both sides. Now we're going to start on the Parmesan pine nut brown butter sauce. I thought I recorded this, but I guess forgot to hit record. All I did was add a couple tablespoons of pine nuts to a dry skillet, and on medium heat, I cooked them until they were toasted. Now I'm going to add in some butter and allow that butter to melt and turn brown. Once it does that, I'm going to add it to a separate bowl. Next, I'm going to add in some softened butter as well as grated Parmesan cheese, and then I'm going to give that a really good mix, and we have a delicious Parmesan and pine nut brown butter. And this butter on these pork chops, y'all, is so good. And if you're not a big pork person, I think this would be delicious on chicken as well. In this skillet, I've got a little bit of oil, a little bit of butter. I heated it up. I'm going to cook the pork chops on each side for about 3 to 5 minutes or so. Just depends on how thick your pork chops are. Now, the Home Chef recipe says to finish the pork chops in the oven, but they used bone-in. If you're using boneless like me, I don't really feel like it's necessary. Just a few minutes on top of the stove. You want to cook the pork until it's at least 145 degrees internal temperature, and then you want to allow the pork chops to rest for 5 or 10 minutes before you serve them up. Here's what the pork chops look like when they were done. Here are the plates. So we've got the pork chops, that Parmesan pine nut butter, the scalloped potatoes, the broccolini, and this dinner was delicious. It was so good. For dinner the next night, I made slow cooker beef and broccoli. I first saw this several years ago on Jessica O'Donoghue's channel. I'll link the recipe in the description box below for you. Here's everything that I'm going to use. First up, you need some thinly sliced sirloin. I bought this a couple months or so ago when it was on sale. I had it in the freezer. I just allowed it to thaw and cut it up myself. I've got some minced garlic, beef broth, or I'm using the beef base with water. And I don't believe the recipe called for ginger, but I like to add it, so I'm just using some of this ginger paste. I've got some sesame oil, soy sauce, and brown sugar. So to my crock pot, I'm going to add in pretty much everything except for the steak. So I've got the beef broth, the soy sauce, the ginger, garlic, the brown sugar, and I'm sure you could use a sugar substitute here. I'm adding in the sesame oil. I'm going to give that a really good whisk. And then a quick note here. So as I was mixing this, I was thinking about it, and I was going to serve this over rice. I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember, how saucy the final product ended up being, because again, we wanted to serve this over rice. So after I added the steak, I ended up doubling the sauce. And just note to future self, you do not need to double the sauce. We have leftovers for days. So once I add the steak, you're going to give it a little mix and then cover it with a lid. Cooked this on high for about 3 hours or so, 3 to 4 hours. Just check after maybe 2.5. And then once your beef is tender, we are going to add in some broccoli. I'm using fresh broccoli today, but I have made this in the past using frozen broccoli, and it turned out just fine. We're going to give that a mix, and then we are going to add in a cornstarch slurry, which is just cornstarch and cold water. Going to give that another stir, and then put the lid back on this and cook this for another 30 minutes. And this is what it looked like after 30 minutes. As you can see, the sauce has thickened up really nicely. I really wanted homemade egg rolls, so I decided to make them. I have shared this before on my channel. I'll quickly walk you through it tonight. I don't follow a recipe. In this skillet, I just had a little bit of olive oil. I added some coleslaw mix, which of course has shredded cabbage and shredded carrots. I seasoned it up with a little soy sauce, ginger powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and then just a tiny pinch of sugar. And then I just cooked it on about medium heat until the vegetables were completely tender. And then I like to set it to the side and allow it to cool slightly. Then I assembled my egg rolls, and if you've never rolled egg rolls before, it's not hard. On the back of the package of egg roll wrappers, it will give you instructions, but basically you just lay down the egg roll wrapper with the end of the triangle facing towards you, add your filling, fold the end facing you over your filling, and then fold the ends up and then just keep rolling. And then I like to seal it up with just a little bit of water on my fingertips. I fried the egg rolls in some oil. I think this was canola or vegetable oil at about 350 degrees. I mean, everything's cooked. You just want to make sure that you get the egg roll wrapper, cooked all the way through and nice and golden brown. And then I like to set them on a wire rack over a cookie sheet. I also made some homemade sweet and sour sauce. Again, I don't follow a recipe for this. I just make it how my dad taught me, which we take equal parts of ketchup and granulated sugar, add it to a little pot. I like to add in just a little dash of soy sauce, and then you need a sour component, and you can use lemon juice, you can use white vinegar, rice wine vinegar, whatever you want, and then mix it up really well. I like to add in a couple tablespoons of water just to kind of thin it out. You bring it to a boil and then simmer it until the sugar is completely dissolved. Give it a taste. You can add a little more sugar if you want a little sweeter, add a little more lemon juice or vinegar if you want it a little more sour. Like I mentioned earlier, I was going to serve this over some steamed white rice, but as I was grabbing the rice from the pantry, I saw these momofuku noodles, and I thought, you know what, noodles sound really good. So I decided to do that instead. I just boiled up the noodles according to the package instructions, and then drained them, added them back to the pot, and added the soy little sauce packet from the noodles, gave that a stir, and then I added the noodles to the beef and broccoli. Again, mixed the noodles with the sauce. Here are the plates. So we've got the beef and broccoli with the noodles, the homemade egg rolls, the sweet and sour sauce, and this was yummy. For dinner the next night, I made some cheesy shrimp fajita tacos. I'm going to start out though by making the side dish. I will have the recipe linked in the description box below for you. I didn't follow the recipe exactly. I mean, I used like the ingredients it called for. I just eyeballed it. So first up, I have this can of fire roasted corn in my pantry. So instead of roasting my own, I'm just going to use that. I just drained it. I'm going to add in some finely diced jalapeno pepper. I did have cotija cheese on hand, so I'm going to use that, but I have used feta cheese in the past. You can use either or. Next, I'm going to add in some salt and pepper, some minced garlic. You can mince your own, of course. I'm just using this stuff from the jar. Next, I'm going to add in some mayonnaise, fresh lime juice. And a quick note, I love Mexican street corn, but I love it in this like salad version. It's so much easier to eat. Once I've added that in, I'm going to add in some chopped cilantro. It's traditional, but if you're a cilantro hater, just leave it out. I'm going to give that a really good mix, and then I'm going to add in some seasonings. I decided to add a little extra cotija cheese. So I'm adding in some smoked paprika, chili powder, a little cayenne pepper. Give it a really good mix and then give it a taste. Adjust the seasonings to your taste. I like to pop this into the refrigerator and let it set for at least 30 minutes just to allow the flavors to come together. I had all the ingredients, so I decided to do a quick pico de gallo. So here I've got some finely diced purple onion or red onion, Roma tomatoes that I seeded, and then some jalapeno. I'm going to add that to a bowl, season it up with a little bit of salt, add some fresh lime juice and then some cilantro. Give it a mix, and then I'm going to pop it into the fridge and let it set just for all, the flavors and everything to come together while I'm making the rest of dinner. This is what the pico looked like when it was done. So fresh, so yummy. So I'm kind of taking from an Instagram post that I saw from Plated by D. I will try to find the video and link it in the description box below for you. In this skillet here, I have some thinly sliced purple onion along with some of the little mini bell peppers, the sweet peppers. I just thinly sliced those, seasoned them up with some salt and pepper, cooked them in olive oil on medium heat until they were tender. I'm going to remove them from the skillet, set them to the side. I'm going to add in some olive oil to the skillet, and I did increase the heat to about medium high. Here I have some shrimp. I just gave it a rough chop, and I'm going to use this Kinder's fajita seasoning. This is about a half a packet. adding that to the shrimp, and then I'm going to cook the shrimp again on medium-high heat for just a couple minutes. Shrimp doesn't take long anyway, and especially chopping them up like this, it took just a couple minutes. Right before the shrimp was ready to come off, I added the vegetables back in and gave them a little toss, set them to the side. Now, this is the same skillet. I just wiped it out. I'm going to add a little bit of butter. I've dropped my heat down to medium. Once the butter has melted, I'm going to add in my tortillas. I'm using the fajita size tortillas. You could use the taco size if you prefer, or you could make this into a quesadilla by using one of the larger tortillas. So once I've laid down that tortilla, I'm going to take some of this queso quesadilla cheese. I think I got this at Kroger or Walmart. I'm going to add the cheese and then just allow that to cook for a couple minutes until the cheese has melted and the bottoms of the tortillas have started to get golden brown. Once that happens, I'm going to take some of the shrimp and fajita veggies, add that to one side. And if you don't like shrimp, you could totally make this with steak or chicken, pork, whatever you prefer, or you could just use vegetables. I think if you want to go vegetable-wise, I think like some cooked mushrooms and zucchini would be really good. I'm going to fold this over and then just cook it for another minute or so on each side until it is golden brown and toasted. And then, yeah, that is it. After you pull these off, you can pull them apart and then add whatever toppings you want. Tonight, I added some of that pico de gallo that we made, along with just some bottled Hidden Valley Chipotle ranch dressing. Serve that up with some of the street corn salad, and Gary ate later than I did. He was working late this night, but everything was delicious. Those tacos, it's like a combination of a taco, a fajita, a quesadilla. It's so yummy. I love the street corn salad. For dinner the next night, we just did leftovers. I warmed up some of the shrimp and fajita mixture. I didn't eat it in a tortilla or anything. I just ate it by itself. And then some of the street corn salad, and Gary had some of the leftover beef and broccoli noodles. Dinner the next night, I apologize, you guys. I did not get a picture, but we were working and ate pretty late, and the order from Taco Bell was like totally wrong and jacked up, and I was irritated and just didn't even think about filming, to be honest. But the caramel apple empanadas were back, and so I wanted to get one, and Gary had never tried them. And so, yeah, we got that. We also got one of the gorditas. It's in the decades back. And then I got a Mexi Melt. We also got like some of the chips and cheese, and I think Gary also got a cheesy gordita crunch. But that's what we got. They left several things off and gave us the wrong things. Anywho, we were able to eat. That's all that matters. And the caramel apple empanada, in case you're wondering, Gary really enjoyed it. Like I said, he'd never had it before. For me, it was what I remembered it to be. Our particular Taco Bell had cooked it well. It wasn't like overcooked or anything like that. It was delicious. But yeah, that's what we had for dinner that night, just Taco Bell. For the last dinner in this week's video, I tried a new recipe. So I went through my freezers and, made a list of things that I really needed to use up. And I had a couple blocks of Fontina cheese. They were small blocks that I'd gotten down on markdown at Target a while ago, and I really needed to use it up. So I was looking for, some recipes for that, and this pumpkin bacon mac and cheese came up, and I also happened to have some canned pumpkin in the fridge that needed to be used up. So decided to give this a try. I will have the recipe linked in the description box below for you. We are going to start out, just like with any other macaroni and cheese, by making a roux. So in this pot here, I have boiled the pasta. It's setting to the side. I'm going to add in my butter and allow it to melt. This is on about medium heat. The recipe called for garlic powder. I actually didn't have any. I cannot believe it. I ran out of garlic powder. So I just added in some minced garlic to the butter. Cooked that for about 30 seconds. I'm going to add in the flour, whisk it, and allow that to cook for a minute or two. Next, I'm going to slowly whisk in some milk. I'm using 2%, and then some heavy cream. Now, I have started using this plant-based cream when I can find it on sale. I find this at Kroger. I think it's mostly made out of like almond milk, but everything that I've used it in place of heavy cream has turned out well so far. So if you're looking for, an alternative to heavy cream, I would give that a try. So I'm going to give that a whisk. Once the mixture has thickened up, I'm going to add in my cheese. Again, this is shredded shredded fontina. I'm sure you could use whatever kind of cheese you want, but look at how cheesy this is. I'm going to season this up with some salt and pepper. Give that a whisk, and then it's time to add in my pumpkin. This is pumpkin puree. Make sure you don't get the pumpkin pie filling. And honestly, I was kind of hesitant to try this. I've never had pumpkin in a savory dish like this, but several years back, we went to Bonefish Grill one time, and Gary got a like ravioli dish, and it had butternut squash inside the ravioli, and then it had like a Parmesan sauce with some fried sage and brown butter. So these were similar ingredients, so I thought we'd like this. I just decided to give it a try. Once I've added in that pumpkin and given it a really good mix, give it a taste, adjust the seasonings to your taste. I added in some chopped fresh sage. Here I've got some bacon. I just chopped it up and cooked it until the bacon was crispy, drained it on a paper towel. You're going to mix in half the bacon. Once you've got that sauce mixed, it is time to add in the pasta. I'm just using some elbow macaroni noodles. I cooked it up according to the package instructions. Use whatever shape of pasta you want. Give that a stir, and as you can see, this is super cheesy, super creamy. I'm going to add that to a greased baking dish. This is a 9x9, and it was like to the top, so you could probably put this in like a 9x11. And I halved the recipe, by the way. I had a little of that fontina cheese left over, so I just decided to add it on top of the macaroni, and then we're going to make a crunchy topping for this. So in this separate bowl, I've added in some panko breadcrumbs, adding in some grated Parmesan cheese along with some olive oil. You could do melted butter if you wanted to do that. Give that a stir, and then we're going to sprinkle that on top of the macaroni and cheese. This is going to go into the preheated oven, and I apologize, I forgot to mention, once I added the panko topping, I added the rest of the cooked and crumbled bacon. So once I've added that, now it's going to go into the preheated oven. It was 350 degrees. Bake this for about 25 to 30 minutes until the panko is golden brown and it's nice and bubbly. Let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now, I was just going to serve the macaroni and cheese with the salad, but Gary hadn't eaten lunch this day. He'd eaten a big breakfast, so he wasn't hungry at lunchtime, and I knew he'd probably need some protein. So I just took a chicken breast that I had in my fridge. I seasoned it up with some of the Kinder's buttery garlic and herb seasoning. I cooked in the air fryer at 360 degrees for about 18 to 20 minutes until it was 165 degrees internal temperature. Here are the plates. So we've got the chicken, the macaroni and cheese, and then I just did some side salads with whatever I could find in the fridge. And we actually really enjoyed this. Gary was hesitant to try it as well, but we both enjoyed it. Gary said he couldn't tell that it had any pumpkin at all in it. I could taste it a little bit, but I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was delicious. So this is a great fall recipe to make. If you're still looking for something to take for Thanksgiving, you want to do a little spin, maybe take this, maybe not. If your family is, stuck on traditional mac and cheese, maybe save this for maybe after Thanksgiving or prior to. But yeah, this was delicious. I would recommend you give it a try. All right, that is it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And for those who celebrate Thanksgiving this upcoming week, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a healthy and safe holiday. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.